Hi guys, I'm going to be reacting to a bass guitar restoration project that somebody's going through. This is from Tuford, and he's really good at what he does, and I really like how he explains things. But we'll see the video here in a second. Let's just get into it. So here we go.
Hey there, gang. Let's see what we can do to help this old bass. This is a Fender Precision bass from the year 1960. As you can see, it's pretty clean, only some slight traces of use. Yes, the
I
P
think that was the
bass,
joke.
as the hipster kids call it. It was Fender's first electric bass guitar, brought to the market in 1950. In its original form, it shares a lot of characteristics with its contemporary, the Telecaster. They were designed within a couple of years of each other. And in other ways, some features would later be used when designing the Strat, like the double cutaway. This is pretty innovative. And yes, there were a couple of earlier attempts to bring a bass guitar to market. We have to acknowledge Paul Tutmark's Audio Vox bass fiddle from the mid-30s. That's the one that the know-it-alls will cite when the trivia gets hot and heavy.
Yeah, so that's a great example. I really like hearing about that. But Fender was the first one to really mass produce and do it well, and have a lot of traction behind them. And the thing is, I don't know if you know the history or not, but I'll tell you anyway. Um, the bass, the electric bass made by Fender was given to guitar players who wanted a double on bass in the studio. So, anyway, let's continue.
There are a couple of others. I think Rickenbacker made one. I think also Regal had a bizarre, gigantic guitar bass. None of
Yeah,
them
there were a couple of
really
those,
went anywhere. This is the one, right? In some ways, it's one of Leo Fender's most revolutionary designs in that it was
especially
so
the
quickly adopted,
57
and it
P
basically
bass, which
replaced
is
the
the
upright acoustic bass
has
in popular music. Um,
the 57 P bass introduced the um, coils that you see those split coil there. So it's a really innovative technology. I think Rickenbacker did that too at one point. But yeah, it's a really cool way of humbucking while still getting a snappy, bright sound. And it also has a lot of mid range to it. That's just why most songs are recorded on a P bass. It has the mid range and the enabling it to be heard in a mix. So, not that you didn't know that already, but I just thought I'd mention that.
with the exception of classical ensembles and jazz, it's so much easier to carry around. 1960 is a pretty good year for these things, I think. The Rosewood fretboard, this is a slab board, became standard the year previous in 1959, but this was the very first year for a celluloid tortoise pickguard. This is an early example, and it's in reasonable shape, actually. A lot of them have shrunk in ways that cause serious damage. They'll deform, and the constant pulling at the screws will make them crack or become seriously wavy. But this one is really holding its own. The split coil pickup became standard in 1957. Previous to that, it was more like a Telecaster pickup. It's nice in that it gives you a hum canceling effect.
Yeah, single coil.
They had to be careful not to publicize it as such, though, because Gibson's patent for the humbucker was very recent, or it was still in the certification process, right? So, intellectual property. So the P-bass is a pretty big object, as these things go. And being the first, it has what would become the standard long scale for bass guitars. 34 inches, that's pretty long, you know. For a guitar, I don't know if you would want to go very much longer. I think some people have tried, but it's kind of a holdover from the upright bass, which the scale length on those is usually 41, 42 inches, thereabouts. But very different ergonomics, right? So, you know, it's long. Who played them? Everyone. It's probably quicker to note the players who use something else, right? But it does the job really, really well. So much of this design is just iconic. This one has a neck issue. I think it's been an issue for some time, mainly because it has this access hole up here on the headstock end, which, although common in some other models in different eras, is completely out of place in Fender guitars from 1960. Looking down there past the spider webs, I can see the end of the anchor for the truss rod. Perhaps the rod broke and had to be removed or pushed out of the channel. It's not really an easy process removing the rods in these because the channels are curved. They, you know, shift towards the back of the neck in its middle. It's not a straight line. Occasionally people will say, well, if the truss rod's broken, why don't you just take the fretboard off and put a new one in? In this era, with the slab board, Fender stopped using the skunk stripe on the back of the neck, which was previously how they were installed. But if you look at the end of this board here, you'll note that it's a curve. It's slightly, the neck itself is slightly concave and the underside of the fretboard is slightly convex. They mate together. It's not flat. And yes, you can pull the boards off, but more often than not, it ends up damaging one or both of these things because it's not a straight line that you're putting a knife into. So it can get really messy really fast. And yes, of course, someone in the comment section will observe that Leo Fender intended these necks to be replaceable. No one wants to replace the neck on a 1960 Fender. So apparently the rod does not work, and we're left with about 25 thousandths worth of relief, which is too much. Despite that, the player manages with it. I run into a lot of basses who don't mind high action for some reason. Now we'd like to see if we can improve that action, which is 8/64ths on the bass side, 7 on the treble. Anything we can do to bring that down would be helpful with so much relief in the neck. This job falls into the setup category. I'm not going to perform major surgery. We're going to make it function as well as possible the way it is. It will likely involve a neck pocket shim. We'll see what happens with the truss rod too. Maybe that can be helped. The saddles are pretty low, especially on the treble side. That's basically lying right on the plate. The surface of the truss rod nut is really deep in there. It's got to be 3/8 of an inch, which is usually a terrible sign. It means either the rod is broken, the threaded portions, or perhaps the wood at the anchor point has crushed through repeated attempts to tighten and straighten the neck, the point where it gave up all of its structural integrity and it becomes super mushy. And, well, it's not good. Put it that way. Loosen off the neck screws.
Yeah, that's...
With those loose, I can tilt the neck back enough to gain access and see if we can... I'm not going to try and tighten it to start off with.
No, I wouldn't either. I'd probably loosen it off all the way. Take it out. Yeah, like he's doing here.
I'm willing to bet that's a fairly new nut. I played patty cake with it and found these 4 washers. I'm not sure we've run out of thread. I think it's probably a case of just no bearing surface. I'm going to see if I can heat press some of this out so we're not starting with 40 thousandths relief without any tension on. Got it set up to ride the lightning here.
That's nice.
While that sits in the firm but nurturing embrace of the Bender, let's have a look at this Les Paul Deluxe. This is from the 70s, a Norlin era product. It was long ago converted from the deluxe configuration with mini buckers to full size, so I guess it's now a standard. But it's got a gold top too, currently. Previously, it had a rather terrible sunburst effect, which had gone over what was originally a gold top, I believe. Anyway, it's obviously had quite a lot of history. This is definitely a player's grade guitar, as it's played by a player. Had a few other changes, had a new bridge because the previous one collapsed, etc. However, it shows vestiges of its beginning, i.e. the stacked lamination known as the pancake body.
The pancake body, yeah.
Rather than a mahogany neck, this has a stack lamination of maple. Nicely quarter-sawn, though.
Oh, yeah.
And
look
of
at
course,
that.
the volute.
The
Stylish. Functional.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Frets on these guitars started off low and wide, and these have been lowered even more, to the point where there's basically nothing left. For those who get annoyed with me when I say that occasionally Gibson used a decal, and they assume that it was always a silkscreen, this is very definitely a water slide decal. These frets are currently about 27 thousandths of an inch tall, with divots that are much deeper, and you can see in some places the string windings on the bass strings have actually been ground into the frets to the point where they've left striations. I've always liked the archaic term ichor. It's just, it sets your teeth on edge, right? What is this? Is this just resin from the wood? I'd like to think so too, but it's probably biological in nature. These frets came out really nice. They were just the perfect size for their slot. That's not always the case.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of these deluxes did not have nibs, including this one. And it's important to try and keep these little landings here because they provide support under the ends of the frets. I'll clean these guys out with my thin, scratchy tool here, which is 22 thousandths of an inch thick or wide.
22,000.
Enjoy the seldom seen feat of my camera tripod while I clip these things to length. I clip the ends of the tang, and they have to be filed smooth. Otherwise, you'll see a little bump in the center of the fret when you're done, and it's not good. Doesn't look right. It has to be smooth. Like that.
Nice.
I knocked them in as usual, dressed them down, and gave them the polishing treatment. They gleam.
Yeah, they're going to be like glass.
These mid-70s deluxes often get pegged for being like high-end Japanese clones or copies or fakes, lawsuit guitars, because there's stuff about them that's really unexpected if you don't know. The maple neck? No, that's wrong. It has no fret nibs. It's got this tiny little sticker on the back of the headstock with the serial number. What's that about? Unlike anything they did before or since. It's not stamped into the wood. It says made in the USA, but it's a decal. And the number is weird. If you put it into one of the serial number lookups, oftentimes it just comes back void. But it is correct. They only did this for 3 years, 75 through 1977.
Yeah.
This one has a prefix of 99 before the serial number. That means it was made in 1975.
Really?
If it said 00, that would be 76. How about 77? What would you expect? No, it's 06. That's ridiculous. Who authorized that? It's outrageous. Right to jail. Right away. So I'm going to tighten this up while it's still in the clamp. Give me some mechanical advantage so that the nut doesn't have to do all the work. It's held straight.
Oh, sure. That way you can get more.
Well, this is very frustrating. It really doesn't work. How to describe? It's like if you have one of those inexpensive plastic bottles, like a soda bottle or water bottle. Sometimes if you keep turning the cap, you'll get some resistance, and then it'll pop over into back into the starting thread, and it'll be loose again. It's not that the rod is spinning freely in there. I think it has to do with the threads. I have to check something. I think there's something about thread pitch on the older rods. Memory is being triggered. Is this maybe the wrong nut? Because, like, it looks so much newer. Could it be the wrong pitch? Yes. Sources conflict, of course, and do not trust the AI-generated answer if you ask the question. But in the 50s, Fender was using a number 1024 thread. Happened to have a 1024 screw. That will not fit, except for, like, one thread into this nut, which I believe is probably the modern standard, which started in 1964, which is 1032. Apparently also, for a short time, they also used an 832 rod in like 61, 62. And no, that's not, there's no way. This is much too small. So, could this be a 1024 rod from 1960? Maybe. This is not going to do. What is it, though? Like, is it possible the threads have been mangled so much by someone trying to put a 1032 onto a 1024? That could be, because the resistance is almost immediate. I mean, you can sort of get it started, but you would seriously damage something.
So why don't I just buy a replacement 1024 nut? Easier said than done. You can go through all of the usual economical choices, all the places you would suspect, Reverb, eBay, Amazon. You're not going to find one. A lot of them are resellers, and much of the information on there is incorrect in many cases, but no 1024s. Doesn't StewMac make a tool for this? To just rechase the threads? Yes, yeah. How many times am I going to use a number 1024 truss rod rescue kit?
Oof.
Am I going to amortize this
Look at
over
the
one
price on
customer
that.
or
That's
two?
ridiculous.
No. StewMac is the only place I can find that sells a 1024 nut. And the $47.03 is one thing, but you've got to tack on the customs broker fee as well as, whatever tariffs might or might not be in place this week. So I don't even know if this is going to work. Seems like a big outlay. It might be better for me just to try and, make my own, buy a piece of 3/8 inch steel and, tap it for 1024 and see what happens.
Yeah, that's
I
way
might do
easier.
Well, I had me an idea. I want to look at the threads. And I also thought to myself, if this is where the nut started off, and this is where it ended up, if we're dealing with threads that have been crushed or damaged, there's no way it could push in that far. Just isn't that much leverage available. Something else is going on. So I drilled a hole, and with that I was able to push the couple extra washers out of the way. Got those out finally. And wonder of wonders. I don't know if we'll be able to see this, but we'll try.
It's bent. I can
See
already
that there
tell.
is the small block, which the end of the rod is supposed to rest against, is very definitely loose in there. I would think that this was supposed to be backed up by solid wood. However, in some designs, the Biflex rod, which is a more modern invention, Fender definitely has space behind this. The other thing I can tell, which is a bit of a surprise, is this is not a 1024 thread. It's finer than that. And once I got those extra washers out of the way, this thing is functioning fine. This is definitely the correct nut. This is a real mystery because this is a slab board. The other possibility, of course, is that this is not the original truss rod. Could have been replaced with the more modern thread. On this side, of course, we got the access channel, which could have been used to bore out and basically unrivet the original stop block on this side, at which point the whole rod could be pushed out and a new one put in its place. Why they would have bored this area down so far with a 3/8 inch drill bit, I don't know. Was this spacer just sort of sitting there? Like, I would hope that someone who would go to all of this trouble would understand at least the basics of the Fender truss rod system. This has to bear against something. You can push and push and, I don't know, run out of thread maybe? Or is this threaded rod that's threaded all the way along? Which would make sense. I don't know how long the original threads would have been on these truss rods. So again, I think the best thing to do is put this thing back in there, and I'm going to epoxy it in place. I can't get enough light down there to show you, it's too far away, but there is another piece of metal down at the bottom, and it actually, if I had to guess, it might be a standard hex nut. I don't know. It shouldn't be there. It's at a depth that there's no way. So maybe they were counting on it to sort of jam. Regardless, I'm going to try and epoxy it in place. Use some shrink tubing here to protect the threads. And we'll find the smoother surface. That one. Should clean that with alcohol. Also roughen the surface. Give the epoxy a place to key into. So I'll get some on the metal spacer. And push that into where I want it to be. This
That's
nut
pretty
is
smart that he's using
going to be
two
farther
in order to
in.
get
It's
it
going
in
to still
there.
look sunken because I think the ends of this rod are mashed. I'm basically going to fill up the cavity behind it. Okay, tune in for the exciting conclusion next week. So these 70s Les Pauls are sometimes a bit maligned. And of course this one's been tampered with extensively, ruining its value on the collector's market forever. But there are people who genuinely love them. I had this on the bench yesterday, stopped for a second, I'm looking at Instagram, and my compatriot in the business, Nick, at Nickified Guitars, has exactly the same guitar on his bench. Exactly. And I was like, twinsies! And he says, oh man, I love this thing. You would not believe this. I've always wanted a 75 Deluxe. It's my holy grail. It's the one. So it's his Desert Island guitar. And I know that Nick has a number of Les Pauls. So, you know, there's something to these. This thing now feels different to play with taller, more rounded frets. I didn't leave them full height either. I dressed them back, not as low as they came from the factory, but the player wanted something a bit taller than he had, and maybe not full height as they came from the box. They're about 38 thousandths tall.
Wow.
Which is, you know, a good solid number. I think they feel nice.
I don't know what.
And yeah, I like them.
All right, let's see if they have a part 2 to this. This one is probably it.
Hey there, gang. Let's do a little bit of work on a Gretsch. It's been a while. This is a big boy guitar. It's a 6120-60, which I think is a reissue of a 1960 6120 model. Gretsch gets a lot of mileage out of the 6120. There are any number of different Brian Setzer variations, Chet Atkins, Duane Eddy and Eddie Cochran tributes, remakes of specific years, rockabilly paint jobs. The differences in the models can be kind of hard to pin down. For instance, they have like 4 or 5 different wiring and control schemes for the same guitar. And if you count up all the number of models that they've produced, I looked it up on their website, there's more than 70 of these things from the last 35 years or so. I couldn't even find this particular one on the list. I know that it's made in Japan in September of 2001.
Ooh, a Japanese guitar.
It's got
You don't see
Filtertron
those
pickups.
every day.
It's got a Bigsby vibrato, thumbnail fretboard markers, everything you want. You just strap it on and warn people not to mess with your DuckTales. Oh, and it's orange. That's important. This thing is in pretty darn good shape for something from 2001, other than some wear on the gold plating. The owner notices that the ends of the frets are protruding and kind of vicious. He also notices that the bridge really wants to move around, which is not uncommon for arch tops with a Bigsby and Gretsch's in particular. Action is just fine for this kind of guitar, I think. 3.5 64ths on the bass side.
Wow.
And 3 on the treble. So that's good and low.
That is very
Neck
low.
relief. It's about 8 thousandths. If we look beyond
Yeah.
the bird's nest of string wires, that's a pretty nice piece of flamed maple for the
Yeah.
headstock overlay. Your characteristic horseshoe. We have, in this case, 0 fret,
Woo!
and those semicircular or thumbnail
I love those
fretboard
thumbnail
markers.
markers.
Looking at the frets themselves, there's some wear there
Some definite wear
starting
there.
to happen. This is a really beautiful piece of ebony for the fretboard. It looks like it may
I
even
wonder
be
if he
quarter sound.
charges more to
The
repair
Bigsby tailpiece,
guitars with
a
ebony
marvel of
fretboards.
modern design. Efficient? Probably not. Clunky? Yeah. Vibe? It's there. Frustration in restringing? Sometimes, if you don't know what you're doing. And bridge misplacement, frequently. This one has the traditional roller bridge on it, which is straight. It's non-compensated. For some reason, we never seem to have a problem with that. These rollers don't actually roll in use. They don't move back and forward as the string is slackened and pushed forward. Not really. In fact, in this case, the entire bridge is rocking, more like a Jazzmaster bridge. It's always a bit dicey to pair something like a Gibson ABR style bridge with solid metal saddles and a Bigsby, because they really don't last very long, especially with wound strings. Maybe if you got flat wounds, but even then, it's not recommended. Why do the bridges move around? Well, with the Bigsby, there isn't a tremendous amount of break angle over your average archtop bridge. It's frequently just enough to get by, actually. And there isn't a whole lot
Somebody
of downward
likes me.
pressure. So, with heavy strumming or, exuberance, these things can slide. The time-tested method is pinning the bridge. You've seen me do that before, where I take a little piece of a brad nail or something like the end of a thumbtack, embed it in the underside of the wooden portion of the bridge, and literally pin it in place. This customer doesn't want to go to that extreme. We're going to try and use a double stick tape for this. I've had mixed success with that. It works most of the time. If you go and play it in a tropical place like, Costa Rica or something, in the rainy season, it might slide. That adhesive is,
Probably
it's tenacious,
will
but it's
slide,
not
yeah.
impenetrable. Props to Gretsch for coming up with some of the most pretty looking pickup surrounds that have ever been created.
Oh yeah.
Always thought those look really nice.
Yeah, those are really
If we're going to
nice.
mark the position of the bridge, we have to intonate and make sure that it's in the cleanest possible position.
Sure. Yeah.
Lots of funny little buzzes from these guitars. If it's flat, it's got to move forward. That's all you really need to remember. And this is going to end up at an angle, just the way it is. This is a straight line, this bridge, and that's just how it is. There are people who see these things and wonder why it's not, you know, parallel to the pickups or something. Just can't be. Okay, I found a good place for it. We'll mark it.
Looks like painter's tape.
Okay, before I go too far, I'm going to mark the front of this bridge. Little pinprick in the center on the underside, so I know which way it goes. These things are pretty symmetrical, and you could put it on backwards, and it would probably function, depending on the amount of wear and stuff that's going on inside the grooves here. You might end up with strange buzzes. This is, well, it's dirty, but it's also got some corrosion happening down in the bottom there, I think. I don't know.
Oh my.
I suppose we could try and
Yeah.
clean it. Be aware that the springs in Bigsby's are loose and they threaten to pop out and skate across the surface of the guitar, causing untold damage. So
Yeah.
keep a firm grip. Be aware. Some dust and some hairs, which I'm hoping are eyelashes. Clean this area with some naphtha. I've got some double-sided tape. Okay,
Yeah,
having
naphtha
peeled, I
is
now get to stick.
The luthier's friend.
This is located as closely as possible. I think this could benefit from a cleaning. There's a lot of grunge stuck down in those grooves.
Yeah, it looks
Cleanliness can be really important with these roller bridges, even more than typical, because the curved takeoff point is just marginally effective. If there's grunge in the groove, or if there's corrosion on the strings, like in this example I dealt with earlier this week, you can get really weird sitar sounds and buzzes.
Yeah.
The takeoff point ends up being indistinct, and it sort of starts to rattle there. So, best to keep them clean.
Ultrasonic
yeah.
jewelry cleaner with a tiny bit of dish soap.
That's the way to do it.
Shall immerse. Well, it looks cleaner. There's dirt all around it. So I guess that was successful. Less visible grunge.
There's still a lot
I'll
of
dry that off gently
stuff on there.
with a heat gun on low heat. Sharp fret ends. How do they happen and why? Over time, the wood of the fretboard can shrink. This frequently happens during the first winter after the guitar has been constructed. If a water-based glue was used to fit the parts together, some portion of that water will be absorbed into the fretboard, and because it's a very dense material, it can take some time for that to re-emerge and for it to equalize with the ambient humidity. When it does, the fret ends have been exposed and they're very sharp. To take care of those, I use a two-stroke procedure. The first one is kind of a radius or an arc motion. The second one comes back and it rolls over towards the center at the top of the fret to create a kind of, it's not quite a semi-hemispherical fret end, but it is very rounded in every aspect.
Yeah, it's gotta be round. He has to
Polishing,
Yeah, polishing.
polishing.
Yep, there it goes.
Polishing.
Oh, that's not good.
That's not good at all. That's the volume pot, I think that's a master volume.
Okay, it's all set up and ready to gretch. As I mentioned, the electronics in these can be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with them, if it's your first time. And there are several different iterations. This is probably the most classic setup for 6120. It helps to know that this pot here is your master volume.
Yeah, that's right.
You won't go too far wrong if you know that that's that. In this case, we also have two more volume pots. Yeah, 3 volumes for a 2-pickup guitar. Yeah, I know.
One of
And in
those
this
switches
case,
is
there
that,
is no rotary tone pot. You can't adjust the tone on this except through a dedicated preset tone circuit on a switch. The first switch here is just your standard three-way pickup selector like you would find on a Les Paul. This one, when in the center position, you have what we consider like a normal signal. If I push it down, I have there's a capacitor engaged that cuts some of the highs out of things. It makes it darker, a little more bassy.
Yeah.
If you go the other direction, this is known as the mud switch. It is so dark, it's like listening to someone play guitar through a wall and down around a corner.
Yeah.
It's so dark and bassy and muddy that, frankly,
Basically
I don't think
unusable.
anyone really knows why it's on there, but it's traditional, and this has it. Okay, we'll do the normal setting, bridge pickup.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I gotta turn it down a little bit more.
Middle position.
You guys have all been getting the videoed audio being very noisy or loud, I guess.
Now then, we'll go back to the bridge.
Oh my goodness, I must be
and try the
bored.
high cut
Sorry,
position.
guys. I'm gonna be going to dinner here in a few minutes, getting ready for that. So,
And now the mud. It gets very much quieter. Besides
we
darker.
can't tell it's muddy because you're recording it acoustic. The microphone is not on the amp.
I'm not fond of it. Put a bunch of reverb and some tremolo on it.
If I wanted to have a semi-acoustic guitar, I'd probably get a Gretsch. They're not terribly dear for the cheaper
Alright,
ones.
maybe it's time we got back to the basics of
maybe
P
like 500
basses.
or something like that. I know that sounds like a lot of money,
Epoxy
but
pour fill seems to
everything's
have
going up these days.
solidified. A lot of people watched that last video, didn't actually listen to my commentary. This is not the original truss rod, okay? There's stuff going on here that is not original, so repair is maybe not exactly what you think it should be. So that is firm. I'm still going to put a couple of packing washers in there to gain just a little bit more space. Like I mentioned, this is not going to be flush with the front. It can't be because the rod is broken off at a point where you couldn't get the nut on there and have enough internal threads on the nut to bring it flush. It's not going to happen. It could happen if I decided to replace the entire rod again. That's not what this repair is about. I put the neck heater clamp back on just to bend the thing straight so that the nut isn't having to do all of the work. If I snug that up, hopefully it'll stay straight. Previously, with no tension on the neck, we had somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 thousandths worth of relief. Now we have 10.
That's more
Which,
like it.
Whatever the outcome, I think we've done something good here. This is much straighter. This is as tight as I would ever put it. I think any more, and we risk something cracking. Sometimes there's a point beyond which you dare not go.
Additional polishing, polishing, polishing.
That's why you had the tape there. You had to make sure that the saw didn't damage
It's
it.
necessary to make a shim for the neck pocket. I got rid of the sheets of sandpaper which had previously been used as a shim.
Yeah, those shims made out of sandpaper don't do anything good.
If you'd like to adjust the old steel saddles on one of these, it's a very good idea to hit them with some penetrating lubricant for insurance purposes. Let it sit there for a good long time
Maybe
and
like
free up anything that's
WD-40 or
frozen.
something.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? It's a thing that happens sometimes, especially with flat wound strings. Flat wound players sometimes keep their strings on for decades. I'm not kidding. But on certain basses, even though these are standard long scale strings, the low E will run out of leader and the wound portion will end up hitting the post, which, because of the groove in it, can act like its own string cutter. And in this case, going from E flat to E was too much. I'm tuning up, and it went boing. As luck would have it, we have a spare string. I think I'm going to cut the old ball end off of this one and use that as a spacer, if it'll fit, or maybe get a small nut or something to give me that extra distance. I need that extra 3/32 of an inch. There's a wear mark here that suggests I'm not the first person to do this. Just made it. Fender had screwed the bridge on 1/8 of an inch farther back. It'd be just fine. Okay, where did we end up? Got 6/64 on the bass side, 5 on the treble. That's more than a 30% reduction in action height, but it's not perfect. It's okay. Why not perfect, though? These frets have been dressed down in the past to the point of no more. And despite clamping this thing into a serious back bow to straighten it, it's still got way more relief than I'd want. And if we lower the strings too much, they start to hit the leading side of the banana here.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get buzzes. There's
Yeah,
not
I
enough
had that
fret
problem
height
on
for
my
me to dress
Ibanez
off. I'd
Double
be into the
D.
board
It just,
before we got it straight enough.
just fucking shit.
Listen to the scurrying sound of tiny feet in the comments section. You hear them? Remember, this bass was basically an afterthought when they were bringing me another job. Customer was fine playing it before. The brief was to see if I could make it play a bit better. This is not someone's priority, high-expense project right now. I'm charging them for a setup. So, could this be made right? Maybe. There are unknowns, though.
Yeah, I mean,
You recall it
completely
completely
got me with
resisted the
that.
heat bender. Did nothing.
he completely got me with the whole setup thing. Because if you were to make that right, it would cost thousands of dollars probably, especially on a high stakes instrument like this. And it'd never be right after that anyway. It wouldn't be original. I mean, it's not. The less original it is, the lower the value. So, it might not have received. Might not receive the same money as completely original with a bit of wear if he were to just go balls to the wall. But you gotta respect the customer for knowing what he wants, and I guess most luthiers would not have gone this far to figure out what the deal was with that truss rod in there. You know, the only thing that changes on basses and guitars, when the action goes crazy, it's not the set screws in the bridge. It's pretty much almost always that truss rod needs to be adjusted. So, and it's probably because you changed the strings to heavier, lighter gauge than the previous set, or different tensions. Same thing, you know. Not really, but you know. So he really went above and beyond for this guy, and I commend him for only charging him for a setup. I'd probably charge him a little bit extra for the hours I would have to put into this. So if I was doing it, but hey, I'm not pro yet, So we're not going to worry about that. I think that's all I want to see of that video, because I think he went through everything else off camera. There's a few minutes left. He's just talking, and he's going to play it. You've heard of P-Base before. It's nothing new. Nothing. Technically, if you go to the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, it explains that there's nothing new under the sun. Even if we have new products, the whole thing is the same. The internet, we talked to each other before, and we had news and everything. It's just a new edition, just like everything else. So before the electric bass, there was the upright. Before the upright, there was the Veal, and it just keeps going back. Before the tuba, there was the Offenclyde. Same thing applies. It's just a succession. And there's nothing really new about any of this stuff. It just seems new because it's great. And I don't want to be necessarily negative about it. I mean, I'm coming off that way, of course. But, just the way that things go. I would highly recommend anybody to read the book of Ecclesiastes. I've read through 6 chapters in the book. I think there's like 13 chapters or something like that. I forget how many. I could look it up. It's a pretty fast read. I just got a little fatigued reading it because it was mostly harping on the same stuff about how all is vanity, and basically meaning that everything is like smoke. It dissipates. So, and that's kind of a negative view, but at the same time, we can take the positive aspect and think, make it the best you can be when you're still here on this earth. So, that's my encouragement to you all. Have a great Sunday. We'll see you maybe later on this week. I don't know. I'm going to probably get pretty busy. So, I'm not going to do my usual rigmarole of the YouTuber spiel, because I really shouldn't be asking you guys for that yet. So, anyway, you know what to do.